Anyway, this afternoon we're talking about attracting buyers and fencing in investors, the business environment imperatives.
In Asia, it is a highly protected region where a lot of businesses cannot exist merely by yourself. It has to come into a partnership with a local company, a local personality, or whatever in the country itself. One of the major or still pertaining problems experienced in Asia is proprietary rights. Well, we experience a lot of infringement, a lot of copying, especially if you talk of intellectual property. This is one area. I think even the subject has been brought on earlier during discussions where we could hopefully have some body in itself that would help to govern what they call trademark registration and the enforcement of the copying of the trademark, the proprietary rights. Developing countries are ever growing, and legislation changes almost every time, and even government changes. I would say we're pretty fortunate within Malaysia. We have a government that has stood still for 5 decades, and we could see a continuation of policies, very stable government legislation and everything. But this could be different in other countries, even especially like in the Philippines. Whenever we see a new president coming out elected, we definitely would see a new legislation in place. Malaysian government very, very strongly supportive of the small and medium industries in Malaysia, where we have, under the arm of the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, they've set up an organization called Montreux, which is for Malaysian export trade development. Well, this authority actually has been helping a lot of SMIs within Malaysia. They've been promoting Malaysia throughout the world. They've been organizing fairs, trade shows, trade missions throughout the world, and they have graciously given a lot of grants to help the SMI.
We base our actions, our work, in defense of the interest of exporters in Argentina on the concept of private-public dialogue, on the concept of cooperation and not confrontation. We work in commissions that meet every month, once a month, and those commissions each addresses a different area of concerns like customs, transportation, taxes, banks, and some others. So the role is then to be like a transmission line between the concerns of actual companies, the exporters, firms that have to toil day to day with customs regulations and all sorts of demands, official demands. We receive their input, we process it, in those commissions a possible solution is thought to the problem, and then the chamber presents it to the correspondent authority.
Could I ask you, do you see government as a hurdle to attracting buyers and fencing in investors? Is the government something to overcome?
Well, that is the attitude that I said that we should not have, because the government is there. The government is not a hurdle. It's going to stay there. I mean, hurdles, you can knock them over. Governments are there. So you have to work in a collaborative attitude. I mean, some things you just have to deal with, and you have to work around them. And you can see them as hurdles, but I don't think that's going to move you forward.
We all know that the best way of attracting investors and also buyers and sellers is by having a business-friendly environment. Governments must give priority to establishing a transparent and consistent regulatory framework to encourage and regulate businesses and competition. Without this framework, developing countries would be unsuccessful in attracting the necessary sustained investment from the private sector, which would create success for satisfied buyers and successful sellers. And this is a sine qua non for building on something that both Richard and Selina touched, public-private partnerships, PPPs, another acronym I will throw on the table. I would like to respond to what my two colleagues have just said by speaking about what can, in certain cases, has proven to be a successful way to achieving this goal for developing countries, if designed correctly. That is, building synergies. We've spoken about joint ventures and synergies in Asia, about working with government in Argentina. So this is the establishment of PPPs. Large informal sectors with jumbled operational structures make it very difficult to identify potential groups that could be targeted for eventual partnership. And, as in any other field, perceived or real corruption has also proven damaging for this kind of initiatives. Without going into the details, the concept of aid for trade relates to assistance and capacity building provided in 6 different categories: trade policy and regulations, trade development, trade-related infrastructure, building productive capacity, trade-related adjustment, and other trade-related needs. A basic requirement for adjustment and a basic requirement for countries to receive aid for trade is that they integrate trade into their overall development strategy. Hence, if a country is willing to receive aid for trade, it needs by definition to open a public-private dialogue, since the public sector will be in charge of the design of the strategy and the activities, and the private sector will either be the means of implementing the activities, as for instance in trade-related infrastructure, or in building productive capacity. Developing countries must not let the occasion slip through their hands. They should swiftly work towards establishing long-lasting public-private partnerships.